Hi there everybody, Dave here from HeyUGuys, and this week I am joined by John Lyus,
Hello, bonjour.
Stefan Pape,
Hello there.
who is getting less and less impressed with his nickname, but it makes me laugh every time. And this week we are going to split up our reviews, and we are going to start by talking about Ghosts in the Shell. John, tell us about Ghosts in the Shell, where it came from, and what it is.
Right, Ghost in the Shell began in the late 80s, 89, as a serialized manga by Masamune Shirow, who created this world of cyborgs and explosions and all this stuff. And there was a sort of a heavy philosophical undertone to it, which kind of gained it a rather big audience in the sort of the cyberpunk era. And it then had its probably best known adaptation so far, which is the 1995 anime. It's gone on to have many other things like original animation videos, OAVs, and TV series, and all this kind of stuff. This is mainly in Japan, and it has made its way over to the UK in the mid to late 90s. And now we have a heavily Americanized, possibly, version of the story. I haven't seen it yet. Dave, I know you have, and Stefan, you have. What's your take on this latest version of it?
I thought it was really enjoyable. I mean, definitely from a visual. I mean, it was stunning visually, wasn't it, Dave?
Stunning.
You could argue. Yeah.
Stunning.
I think no. I mean, when you see a movie like this, so much of it is about the world you inhabit, because you have to believe in all the new sets of rules and this kind of near future that you're kind of entering into. And that is one thing that this completely gets so spot on. I think Rupert Sanders does an incredible job of just creating a universe that you just completely adhere to. And the second I started watching this movie, I was so kind of immersed and sort of transfixed with the whole aesthetic and just there's a kind of neon glow that kind of shines off all the skyscrapers and all the kind of adverts and this kind of incredible futuristic kind of landscape, which I just adored. So I think for me that was the film's greatest kind of selling point. But then I think when you do go beneath the surface, there is a really quite interesting, as you said, a quite kind of philosophical tale that really studies kind of humanity's worth. And it's, you can simplify this film very much really to just being about this woman, or this part woman, part cyborg, who's just trying to find out who she is and how she fits into this world, which is is effectively a kind of quite intimate character study, just set in this sort of grandiose environment. And Scarlett Johansson does an incredible job. She has this incredible kind of otherworldly quality where she's very easy to kind of invest in, but at the same time there's a bit of a disconnect. She always seems like she's not always quite there, and I think that's what made the performance Under the Skin so good, and it's what makes this performance so good. She's got a real kind of ethereal, quite sort of quality about her that makes her really perfect casting, because there was obviously controversy about her casting in the first place. I mean, Hollywood was accused of whitewashing, but I think if you can strip away the kind of controversy about this movie and any kind of preconceptions, there's a lot to admire, I think.
I'm with you, Stefan, on the visual aesthetic. I think that was, for me, the greatest achievement of this film. Was just like, I think CG is a difficult thing to improve upon now, because as an audience we're always looking to I guess we're so used to seeing movies. You look at Jungle Book recently and all the motion capture stuff there, but and even things like Transformers, where the CG is just so good. But this was just really different and really worked with the real world, and how they could how in future you might see advertising used where it literally is attached to buildings with giant people just bowing down to people walking past. And I think it actually sort of was sewed in realism about how it could actually be done. Is that what you thought?
I thought there was a sort of sense of, not sort of realism seems like quite a sort of stretch as a term, because obviously it's so kind of absurd, but it does feel, I think you believe in the world so much, don't you? I think that's what I took out of it. But I felt that maybe the film was slightly lacking in heart, and I think that maybe that's deliberate, because that's one of the organs the lead character actually hasn't got, is a heart. So maybe I didn't quite feel emotionally involved in her story that much. I think for me that was one of the issues. But again, part of that does feel almost deliberate, because she's kind of struggling to find out who she is, and she hasn't got a heart. She's only really got a brain. So it's quite interesting that maybe that is a deliberate move, that we don't really get that attachment. But for me, that was slightly detrimental to the film, I have to say. But I thought there was geisha robots. They were really cool. And Takeshi Kitano, who's in the movie as well. He plays Daisuke Aramaki. He's like the chief of public security for
You've
Section
been
9.
practicing how to say that.
Yeah. But he's Takeshi from Takeshi's Castle. This guy's a genius.
Man.
He's an actor, and he's like a farcical kind of comedian, and then he's a really highly regarded director, and he's an author and a poet. and a painter, and he invents video games. We need to get him on our podcast.
Yeah, we
The
do.
man's got it all. That's amazing.
What did you think of Scarlett in the lead role? Because for me, I did struggle to disconnect Black Widow from the Avengers movies and her character in this. I just thought it's like they've thrown Black Widow into a.
What about
futuristic-
Lucy as well? Because the Luc Besson film.
And Lucy, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think especially with Lucy and with and like I said, Under the Skin as well. I think there is a reason why she's getting cast in these kind of science fiction roles where it is about people that are almost like part human, part something else. Because, like I said, there's something kind of otherworldly about her. But I mean that as a compliment. But I'm not just saying that as if she walked down the street. God, isn't there something otherworldly about that woman? When she's actually acting, she can tap into this. I don't know, this ability, I guess, just to kind of be engaged, but at the same time always seem like she's not really of this world. And I think that's something that's actually quite a cool technique, I guess, and that's why she's getting cast in these roles. And I think she does a really good job. I think she's really great in this part. Like I said, I didn't feel emotionally invested in the character, but I don't think that's her fault as such. I think that's more as a result of just the kind of the narrative of this movie and having a character that is kind of part robot. I guess it's kind of sometimes, unless it's Wall-E, I find it kind of quite hard to sometimes find that emotional attachment to someone that's not so real.
It's interesting you say that because you mentioned Under the Skin, which is something that I've thought about when I saw the first image for Ghost in the Shell. It was almost like an outtake from Jonathan Glazer's film. The thing about Under the Skin is that it's very distant. It's almost like a meditative look at humanity, from an alien point of view. And this is, exploring similar ground that we've seen over the last sort of 20, 30 years about what is, humanity and, how do we, construct ourselves? How do we, live with, inhuman, robots or cyborgs or whatever? Does it break any new ground, or is it just simply a decent looking, if potentially Blade Runner-esque, like pretty much everything else is these days? Does it sort of go under the skin, to bring my little comment back in a full circle?
See what you did there.
I did, yeah.
No, I don't think it's groundbreaking in a sense. I think it's always refreshing to have a blockbuster that deals with more profound kind of themes that are kind of larger than perhaps we might have expected to have encountered in this movie. But yeah, I think it really does study kind of our own relationship and our dependability, I think, on technology, and then the value and worth of humanity in and amongst that. Obviously, everything's becoming kind of. They're saying when you go to kind of tube stations now in London, they're not going to have staff there. They're just going to place everything with machines, and everything is becoming kind of machine based, and rather than use humans, we're actually starting to use kind of technology to
even driverless cars. It's all stuff that we're on the cusp of doing, and it's
exactly. So, and this film is kind of saying, well, that's all well and good, but sometimes you can never quite. There's a kind of empathy, I guess, that only a human can bring to something, and how important is that heart and that soul, and what can that actually bring that technology couldn't, and I think this film does study that, but I guess it doesn't feel groundbreaking, mostly just because these are themes, like as you mentioned before, this has been a franchise which has existed from the late 80s, so this has been the themes that this franchise has thrived in ever since its first conception. So it's hard to call it groundbreaking, maybe groundbreaking to a really big mainstream audience who haven't necessarily encountered the anime before, but I think that if you were to really call this groundbreaking, you would have to go back to 1989 when this was first sort of conceived, because that's really when all of these themes were first fully discussed, were through the sort of original Ghost in the Shell.
It's interesting because also you're talking about the communication and connection between humans and technology, and one of the most profound films that I've seen in the last sort of half decade is Her by Spike Jonze, and of course the voice of Her was Scarlett Johansson. So she's everywhere, and B, I think she's going to take over the world, which is, that's fine. She can do that.
Yeah, we'll allow it.
Yeah, I'm happy for that.
So, Stefan, you gave this film 3 stars. I would probably agree with you. I think Scott really liked it and would give it 4.
He's kept to be quiet on this one, though, isn't he? I don't know where.
Yeah.
He's keeping his thoughts to himself. It feels like.
Yeah, he sends his apologies. But were you close to a 4? Or was it definitely a 3-star film for you?
No, it was 3 or 4. I think it's one of those things where I as soon as I left, it was definitely a 3-star review, and that was because I think sometimes with the bigger movies you kind of have to write them quicker than you do because you will need to get them out there. So I was sort of left thinking, yeah, 3 stars, but then it's only really now kind of it's been about 4 days, 5 days since I've seen it that I've started to appreciate certain aspects of it that could have taken up to a 4. But I'm going to stick to my guns. It's for me, it's a 3-star movie, but it's an incredible film to look at and to immerse yourself in.
Yeah.
But it was just lacking that emotional engagement for me that would have taken it, I think, to a higher rating.
Yep, I'm with you. So let us know once you've seen Ghost in the Shell what you think of it. Did it live up to expectations? And let us know your star ratings in the comments. And we'll see you next time on Mouth Off.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed,
Nice.
Hey!